We're going to be doing a wet and wet blend where we're blending one wet color into another color. This is a very useful technique for water and for skies, along with many other things. So this is, we're using ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and white. And so we're going to start off with a fairly dark color. And I don't think the canvas, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have a much more ultramarine blue at the top of the sky and then gradually coming down to almost straight phthalo and white down lower. But this is a very small canvas, at least for me. We should put down a horizon line. So we're going to have approximately 2/3 sky, 1/3 water. So we're going to introduce the ultramarine blue. So the initial color, we're looking at more ultramarine blue. And keep in mind, you can see the quantities down there. There's a lot more ultramarine blue than there is phthalo blue. And that's just due to the strength of the colors. And one of the things that I find a little difficult with this technique is that you need to use enough paint. It's against my Scottish heart to use so much paint here, but you really want to use enough. It makes your life a lot easier. Just the same as you spread things out to dry, if you spread the paint too thin, it's going to dry too quickly on you, and you're not going to have enough time to do a nice blend. So I think I'm going to up that a little bit more. And this is more about quantity right now. So I think we're going to go for one of the things. All the other times I've been telling you to make sure you got the color right and then make it lighter. But in this case, because of the nature of the blend, we're going to be blending a lighter color up into it. So you want to make sure you start a little bit darker than where you think you want to go. So we want to start this just by putting, I did the top and the bottom, but we're going to start the face here with just one stroke of our nice dark blue across the top. So now we're going to add a little bit of white. And I'm going to add a little bit more water. And we're just going to do that right below there. And then we're going to go back and forth, gradually move the brush up. So you can see why having that a little bit darker than what you want, and then we're going to come down again. So we're not going to worry about having it too smooth at this time. And so now we're going lighter still. And so we're going to put a band, making sure we're using enough paint. And unfortunately, after I've done this, there's often quite a bit of paint left, so we're just roughly blending that up. Now we're going to add more white. And we'll put that down below. Now, if you're starting out, don't worry about doing the edges first. It's more important that you worry about the top face. So it's about this point that I change brushes, and I change brushes because you can see all the colors at the top there, and there's a good chance that that's going to land down in my painting where I don't want it. So we're going to add a lot of white here, a bit of water, and we're just going to come making sure we got enough paint. Not sure if you can hear the wind, but that's pretty windy out there today. So now we're going to get a dry brush, and I usually start at the top because that's had the most time to dry. And so I just go back and forth. And you need to do this fairly quickly because it's all drying on us. So rather than come all the way down, I'm going to take it back up. So you're going back and forth very quickly, but only gradually up. And so if you get a bend, you can do shallow X's to smooth the bend out. And we're going to have to pretty much finish at the top there because I can feel it dragging. When the brush starts to drag, you know that you're pretty much done that. So I just got a little bit of a stubborn mark there. So we're going to work our way down. Do not rush. Do not lift the brush and move down. And if you do happen to take the brush off the canvas, just simply go back in where you lifted off, not guessing at where you might have gone. So it came off about midsection. So we're going to do the same down below. We're not going to go as light down below. You're starting with the same blue. So we're just following the same path we did with the color before. Now if this was going to be horizon line, the sky meeting the water, I would take the time to lay down some masking tape, but I would definitely have let the top dry first. So we'll going to get the same brush that we use. This is the dry one, but it does have paint on it. So we're going to do another one, but we're going to do this a little bit lighter using the ultramarine phthalo blue, because this one we're going to put some orange color down the bottom. But let's just put that line in there. So what we're going to do here is I think we'll get some of the orange mix that we're going to use ready before we start blending, because we don't want to take a lot of time that we're not blending. So we're just going to put some, this is a bismuth yellow light, medium rather, actually it's a bismuth yellow deep. Bismuth yellow is a beautifully opaque yellow. You don't have to use it here. That's just what I happen to grab. But when you get the bismuth yellow deep, it's nothing like an airline deep. It looks more like a middle. It's just not available in the deeper colors. I guess I can't do that. So we need very little red. I think that'll probably be it. We better put a bit more just to be safe. We don't want to be screwing around adding more paint. Okay, so let's mix up our starting blue. I think we'll make that a little bit lighter. We want to end this one with a lot more white. So we're just going to run that band right along the top. Add more white, some water. More white. We're going to dump this brush because there's too much blue in that now. I don't like to take the time to clean a brush. I want to get that. So this is so we are going to take the time to smooth that out now before we add the orange. So shallow X's there just to take out any banding. We're now going to quickly mix up that. We're going to run that right along the bottom there. That was a very dirty brush. So we're going to do this again, but we're going to do it a different way. So we're going to, you can see that I had to put down more ultramarine blue and I had to put down more white, but I have not had to put down more of the phthalo nor the red. But what we're going to do this time is we're going to come down and we're going to leave it very white near the bottom, and then we're going to come back and glaze in the orange. So we'll start off with the ultramarine blue. And so this ultramarine blue and phthalo blue mix is actually, if you buy cobalt blue hue, it is made up of these two blues. So, and cobalt blue is a very expensive blue compared to the ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. And it's no more is it permanent. These blues are just as permanent, but they are actually much more versatile than the cobalt blue. So we're just dropping and rolling, getting some of that paint off. What I like about being able to mix a cobalt blue is that I can push it more into the phthalo blue side if I want, or into the warmer ultramarine side. I like that ability to have flex. So I've got a whole new set of brushes. And I'm using fresh ones because after you wash the brush, there's a certain amount of water that gets caught up near the ferrule. And no matter how well you dry it, some of it's going to come out or possibly come out while you're painting. So we may not need this many brushes, but it is handy having them ready. So we're going to get this a little bit thinner than what we've got it. When I'm mixing with this brush, I'm pushing down to try and get it blended near the top. But when you're painting, you're only using the tip. You don't want any of that dark paint near the top. We've got a clean brush because we don't want all that blue contamination in there, just a little bit. Part of the learning curve of here is knowing how much water to add to the paint as you're trying to blend. When you're working with straight white, make sure you are covering the canvas there. So we've got a clean brush and we're start at the top again. Actually, because I want it white, I'm going to start at the bottom, even though the general rule for blending is to work what went down first. But I want to make sure we get that nice and white at the bottom. I'm going to use a big brush just to smooth that out. So just on the very tip. So we'll let that dry while we approach the bottom. I think we'll start with the light color. So we're starting in the white. This is the dry brush again, just back and forth. To smooth that out. So I force dried that with the hair dryer. It's better to leave it overnight. But what we're going to do now is we're going to mix a glaze. And so when you're mixing an orange, it's better to use the warm red or this red rather than the magenta, as you get less saturation cost, meaning that you'll get a slightly more saturated orange. So it's better to use the warm red so that you get a slightly better orange, a slightly more saturated orange. So we just need enough paint to put one band through there. And the closer to red it is, the less likely we're going to get any greens. The yellower it is, the more chance you're going to get greens. So we're just going to put that band right across there, a nice solid band. And so then we're going to glaze that up into, so glazing, we're getting a clean brush and we're just getting that wet, and we'll squeeze most of the water out, but you're going to put the brush half on. That wasn't a very clean brush. And you want to wet this top edge as well, so that it doesn't have time to dry. And get a cleaner brush. So this is a damp brush as opposed to a dry brush, and we're just going to work that edge until it blends up into the blue, and we'll come down. I used a sprayer to wet that brush. So we just want to soften that line there a little bit. And if you feel like you've taken too much of the orange out, which I'm not really thinking that, but you can put it back in and start softening that again. When you're blending in two directions, you have to work both edges at the same time, otherwise it starts to dry. So we're going to do this again, but this time we're going to be blending, rather than taking an orange into blue, which has a natural desaturation, or if it's a yellow-orange tendency to go green, we're going to, some colors are very compatible, so we're going to do like a hazy purple at the horizon. So we've got a new set of brushes, dry, but we will reuse this one. Try and get some of that white out of the top. And when you work a brush like this, it has the unfortunate side effect of pushing the paint higher up into the ferrule, which isn't always, which is what you don't want to happen. But I never worry about a brush's well-being over the painting's well-being. Not really much later. So you can see that I really should change brushes when we've got that paint on there. There's too much dark color in the top part of the brush, so we'll just switch to this one that has the light on it. Now, if you're going to do this a lot, it's helpful to have a lot of brushes, but if you've got the time, just clean the brushes and make sure they're really nice and dry before you start screwing around. So I think we're going to get our lightest brush and just push that. So we're going to quickly smooth that out, dry brush, starting at the top where it's the driest. We're now going to, I've added magenta to the mix. We want to get a little more blue in that. We'll get a little more white in that. So this is really down into the water area now. I haven't bothered to put lines down there, but a little bit more purple in that. These colors are so much easier to work with because they're compatible. Like, they're not desaturating each other. They're adjacent colors on the color wheel or analogous, so they just create some beautiful halftone colors. We're getting a little bit chintzy with the paint here. Keeping your water bottle or your water container on the same side as your palette is very good habit to get into, because what can happen is when you're dipping your brush in the water, you can bring it across your canvas and actually either drop paint or water onto your blend or any other canvas that you're doing. If your canvas is wet or you use too much water in your blend, it will look somewhat like this. The blend needs to be opaque and the canvas should never be wet. If you happen to drop moisture on the canvas, it's best just to leave it alone, because the water does act like paint remover. It is possible when you drop water to blend that out, but only if it's relatively fresh and you need to apply more paint so that you're working it out. Arcing is when you're moving your arm or either from your wrist or from your elbow or from your shoulder. You need to try and maintain that straight across. One of the problems with arcing is you very rarely arc in the exact same position. It's much easier to stay straight. A lot of times when I'm doing a large blend, I'm actually moving back and forth with my whole body to maintain that straight angle across the canvas. Sometimes I've been confused with Michael Jackson.